Here's the reality. If we stay in this black or white mentality, we leave no room for flexibility or just being human. And if you're binging, it will continue to perpetuate the binge eating cycle.
Welcome to Behind the Binge, the podcast where we bring forth much needed conversations about binge eating recovery and ditching diet culture. I'm your host, Marissa Kai-Millick, a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and binge eating coach. This is our space to dive into practical tips to heal from binge eating, challenge your diet culture beliefs, discuss the nuances of intuitive eating, and empower you to recover. Let's start exploring what's behind the binge.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. It's your host, Marissa. Hope you're having a great Monday so far. So, before we dive into today's episode, which is going to be so great and such an important conversation, I want to let you know about an upcoming webinar that I have coming up that is coming up. Talk about redundant. But this webinar is completely free and it is a binge eating masterclass. I am going to be going over exactly what you need to find binge freedom. I'm going to go through the mindset shifts that are crucial to overcoming our fears and obsession with food and our body. I'm going to be talking about a really simple first step you can take today to start working on your relationship with food and healing from binge eating. And I'm going to dive into all sorts of other topics and talk about the trajectory of finding binge freedom. And at the end, there is a very special one time offer for those who come live. And I want to make sure that you're there to see it. So I'm announcing it actually today, which is Friday. I'm recording this on Friday, but it is going to be in exactly 2 weeks on May 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So you can sign up for the webinar through the link in my bio on Instagram, which is at binge.nutritionist. And I hope to see you there. I've never offered anything like this before, and I'm going to be spilling so many secrets that people have been telling me I should not give away for free. But it is my mission to inspire you to find binge freedom. I struggled with binge eating for so long, and it seriously is life sucking and exhausting. And I don't want anyone to have to deal with that. So I would love if you would join us on the webinar. There is going to be time at the end for a Q&A to answer all of your burning questions. So would love to have you, not only so that you can absorb all of the information and knowledge that I'm going to be sharing with the listeners, but also so you can answer, or so I can answer your questions and you can have the opportunity to get this special offer that I'm going to be offering at the end of the webinar. So definitely head over to Instagram at binge.nutritionist. And in my bio, there will be a link to sign up for the webinar, and you'll get an email with all the information to join us. So, for today's topic, I want to talk about the all or nothing mentality. And this is the mentality that keeps us stuck binging, but it's also something that's been ingrained in us deeply from diet culture. So, all or nothing mentality, but also black and white mentalities is kind of how you might describe it. Today, I'm going to talk about it being black and white because I see that sort of polarizing picture in my head when I think of, the opposite colors of black and white. So, diet culture really instills in us this belief that health is black and white and that there is a one size fits all approach to pursuing optimal health. So, in diet culture, you might hear things like gaining weight is bad, losing weight is good, right? That's black and white. There's no nuance to it. And I'm here to tell you that there's pretty much nuance to everything. It's why I started this podcast, because these topics are more complicated than I can portray in an Instagram post. But diet culture likes to make it so simple. Like, if you just follow this one plan, you will have the secret to optimal health. But here's the reality. If we stay in this black or white mentality, we leave no room for flexibility or just being human. And if you're binging, it will continue to perpetuate the binge eating cycle. Even in binge eating recovery, having a black and white mentality, an all or nothing mentality, continues the cycle, even if it's with good intention. So I want to kind of explain what all of that means. So let's dive into kind of the diet culture, black and white mentality around health, what the truth is behind that, and which more so means the lack of truth behind that. And then let's dive into how also recovery and intuitive eating is also not black and white. So overall, we're getting out of the black and white mentality for good. We're not just shifting the way we see those things. That we're not just shifting what items we're putting into those two categories. We're actually completely removing it and living more so in the gray of things. So with diets, let's think about health, right? Because health is always the guise that diets like to hide under. Oh, it's for your health. We're losing weight for health, when really we know it's loaded with things more so aligned with just acceptance, general acceptance, and desirability. Um, but for the sake of this episode, let's just talk about health. So, if you're pursuing health from a diet culture lens, you'll often believe things like all carbs are bad, or you know, eating after 7 is bad, gaining weight is bad, losing weight is good, eating broccoli is good, but eating sweet potatoes are bad. Things like that. They're very structured. It's rules. And these rules have some sort of moral value to it. And if you are on this diet and you're pursuing health and you go to a birthday party and they have cake and you want some cake and you eat the cake, you feel that black and white feeling come flooding of this is bad. This is wrong. There's no flexibility in that. And that is what causes us to feel like a failure and causes that all or nothing mentality of, well, I already messed up, might as well just kind of allow myself to indulge or to cheat and keep eating these off limit foods and start over tomorrow. And I'm sure so many of you can relate to that. Have you ever thought, oh, I'll just start over on Monday? And so all weekend you just binge? Yeah, that's because we had this black and white mentality that I had a piece of cake, so I screwed up completely from one piece of cake. And so now let's just screw the whole weekend and start over on Monday. I mean, do you see how honestly irrational that thinking is, and leaves no room for fun or flexibility or change of life circumstances, which is what I honestly ranted about on my episode about 75 hard, because there's no room for flexibility in that. Anyways, I digress. When it comes to diets, they tell you follow these rules and you're good, fall off the rules and you're bad and you're a failure. And the reason for that is because they tell you that if you just follow these rules, if you get the results that they're promising you, you will be healthy. Health is not that simple. If it were that simple, then honestly, like, we would all be so in control of our own health. But there's so many parts of health that are outside of our control, and we don't like to hear that, which is why those of us who pursue health as part of our lives, something that we value, it's why we try so hard to manipulate our food, because that's one way that we have a little bit of control over our health. But let me tell you, that is so minuscule, and it's less about the food we're eating and more about the how we're eating it. And what I mean by that is that it matters less if we're eating vegetables and fruit and whole grains versus eating processed foods, and more so matters how. Are we listening to our body? Are we overeating? Are we stressed out about the food that we're eating? Is the food that we're eating giving us energy, making us feel good? It's more so about how we navigate that relationship with food that plays a role in health. But I'm kind of getting off track here, because that's not what the podcast is about. Podcast is about how health, dieting, intuitive eating, none of this is black and white. So if we think about health being black and white, we would think that, okay, simply we can control what we eat, which is also not true. We can't completely control what we eat. There are definitely factors about our body that drive the desire to eat certain foods that are out of our control. Anyway, oh my gosh, this could be a whole nother podcast episode. I don't want to confuse anybody, but if it were as simple as black and white, as we just eat certain ways and move our body certain ways and keep our body weight in a certain range, we would be healthy. Like, it would be so simple, but it's not, because genetics, because our environment, how we grew up, socioeconomic status, education, just our mental health, all sorts of different factors that are outside of our control play a role in health. And for those of us that like to pursue a healthful life, don't like to hear that. We like to be in control. We like to think we can do the best that we can to control our health. But the truth of the matter is, it's not black and white. So when we treat health like it's black and white, we're actually going against health because we're not giving us room to listen to our body. So the truth here is if it's not black and white, it's flexible and it's different for everyone. I mean, I'm sure you've met people before who eat a certain way and they feel really good, but when you ate that way, you did not feel good. For example, I love cruciferous vegetables. I love is definitely a big word. I just talked about this on my story the other day about how I'm not the biggest fan of vegetables. But if I were to like a certain vegetable, it would be broccoli and broccolini, mostly broccolini. But my sister, on the other hand, does not do well with broccoli. She gets so bloated and gets so much GI discomfort. So clearly, if health was as simple as, oh, just eat vegetables, eat your broccoli, then we would both thrive on that, right? But we're all different. And so that doesn't actually serve her healthfully. Believe it or not, broccoli's not healthy for her because it gives her discomfort, it gives her GI distress, and in turn stresses her out. So sure, maybe she's getting some nutrients from the broccoli, but nutrients aren't going to decide your health at the end of the day. So it's not as simple as, oh, if I just eat what, this person is telling me to eat, I will be healthy. And it's the same with weight. If we all were the same exact size, we would not all be healthy because we all have a set point range that is out of our control. And when we go against that set point range, we're going against health, which is not something that you've probably heard much about before. But when we constantly are fighting our body, tell me how that's healthy. When our body is fighting us back by causing binges, by lowering our metabolism, by altering our hormones, tell me how that's healthy. It's not. So, what is healthy, right? Now, if we're getting to the truth of the matter, I'm telling you all about how diet culture has these unreasonable belief systems that health is black and white, it's all or nothing. It's, you either eat all the pizza you want or you eat all the broccoli you want, but you can't have both. It's telling you all of these just like crazy beliefs. So, what is the truth? How do we find health? Well, if it's really different for everybody, then you get to decide what that feels like and listen to your body to find those answers. So, that's why when I get into working with clients on finding binge freedom and moving into the world of intuitive eating, we run into these problems where people are still trying to check all the boxes. They're still pulling that black and white mentality over from diet culture into the world of food freedom and thinking, how can I tick all the boxes and do this right? Do the good thing, do the right thing. It's like there's no right and wrong. It's just all discovery. It's all finding what resonates with you. And in my program, or if you follow the intuitive eating book, or in many other programs, we have a framework. We have a guide to guide you down the path to food freedom. But it's a guide that prompts you to uncover truths about what resonates with you, meaning you're doing the exploration, but I'm just the tour guide. I'm just taking you along on the ride, but you get to learn for yourself how you use that information to build better connection to your body. So, intuitive eating isn't black and white either. It's not ticking all the boxes because for some people, they may find that down the road, they start craving more nutritious foods and they love it. And they're like, wow, I've never craved nutritious foods in my life. And some people might need to utilize gentle nutrition to have nutritious foods in their life because they just don't crave them. They enjoy them. It's fine. But for them, they have to more so utilize the gentle nutrition principle of intuitive eating. Different for everyone. So, the thing that holds people back from finding binge freedom and finally just like never binging again, never dieting again is staying in this black and white mentality. It's, oh, I binged, so I'm doing this wrong, or I didn't eat lunch today because I got really busy. And so I'm wrong. I'm doing this wrong. No, it's all learning. If you missed lunch today and that was part of, what's been helpful on your recovery, it's recognizing, "Oh, I got too busy today, and this is why, and this is maybe some tweaks I could make to my schedule on a busy day to ensure that I get in lunch so I don't binge later." It's when you binge, you recognize that there was something going on, whether or not we understand what was happening. It's a signal from our body. We honored that. And that permission to explore even the bumps in the road are such a crucial part of this, because when we add the judgment or the shame on top of that, we're falling back into that black and white mentality of good and bad. Now I understand we don't want to binge, especially when we're on a journey to stop binging. But we will get stuck if we continue to feel like anytime we do binge on the journey, which is really normal to happen. I mean, we're not just going to like a light switch turn off one day of just, oh, you don't want to binge anymore? Let me flip the switch down for you and you just won't binge anymore. We're going to binge while we try to figure out how to listen to our body again, especially if it's been years or decades of dieting. But oh, where was I going with that sentence? Oh, what I was saying was of course, we don't want to binge, but it's important to recognize that binging doesn't make it unsuccessful or you a failure or bad. So, all in all, when we think about healing our relationship with food, we have to heal our mindset. We have to heal this idea that it's all or nothing, it's black and white, because that will continue to get you stuck, not only in your relationship with food, but in relationships with so many other things in life, with work, with your partner, with your friends, because there's no flexibility or compassion in that. And my guess is that you are more compassionate and less black and white with people that you love. But why is there a double standard for you? Why can't you be flexible and compassionate with yourself? And that's really where we'll find the answers and find the ability to just own that every day is different and we know what's right for us, and we're the only one who knows us as well as anybody could know us. So I'm going to follow that and understand that there are reasons why some things might work for me that don't work for other people, and some things might work for other people that don't work for me. Sometimes when I record these podcast episodes, I'm like, does anything I'm saying make any sense? I think that thought's always on my mind while I'm talking, because I can talk in circles for sure. But if we could just wrap up the message here, it's that nothing in regards to health is black and white. Even in a world of intuitive eating, it's not black and white. You will find what feels right for you, and you'll look for justification that it's right for you. But if it feels intuitive, if it feels aligned with what you value, if it feels good, and that's shown in the way your body responds, then that's the answer. Someone asked me a question the other day about how when they eat ice cream, now that they've habituated, they're not binging anymore, they still find themselves eating quote unquote more or too much. And I'm like, why is it too much? If you feel like when you eat the amount that you're eating, you can move on and you're not obsessing and you're not overly full and you feel fine, then why is that too much? She's like, well, it's more than a serving size. I'm like, a serving size is like half a cup. That's nothing on most ice creams that I see. I would never eat half a cup. What is that, like a scoop? So stop relying on all of these other sources of validation and realize that because the label says half a scoop or half a cup is a serving size, that doesn't mean that that's the serving size for you and what makes you feel good. I don't think I've ever eaten just half of a cup of ice cream in a sitting before. That's nothing to me. But for some people, that's like perfect. My dad cuts up mini sized Snickers bars, the like fun size. He will cut them in half and have half and put the rest away for later. What? Wouldn't work for me because it's not black and white. Because it's not, oh, a half should be enough. No. And eating a half versus a whole doesn't make you healthy or unhealthy. It's not that simple. All of this to say, when we think about why we like to live in black and white mentalities. It's because that's at least something we can control. Because a sense of control gives us a sense of safety. And when things are out of our control, it doesn't feel safe, it feels uncertain. But we have to sit in that discomfort of the truth of the matter is so much of health, so much of our appetite, so much of our eating patterns will be out of our control. And while we can make mindful and informed decisions about the way we feed ourselves, it's not going to always give us the answer 100% of the time, if that makes sense. Meaning, I'm going to make the informed decision to try to eat vegetables most days, but some days I'm going to feel totally put off by them, and that's fine. It doesn't make me unhealthy. I talked about that on my story the other day. I made broccolini, which is like my favorite vegetable if I had to pick one. And I ate one bite and was like, "Oh, this like tastes weird to me today. I don't know why." It just I don't know. It was leftovers too, so maybe that was why it just had a weird taste to it. And I was like, "Absolutely not. I'm not eating this." So I didn't have a vegetable. And I said the only vegetable I technically ate that day was a slice of tomato and tomato sauce. And that was it. Does that make me unhealthy because I didn't eat my however many servings of vegetables in a day? No, it doesn't. So remember that whenever you are thinking that eating pizza with your friend makes you unhealthy or wrong or bad, or because you gained weight, it makes you unhealthy or wrong or bad, because it's all subjective. And when we can move out of that black and white mentality, we can actually better take care of ourselves because we're going to be better able to listen to our body. So that's the message here. Hope you all enjoyed this podcast episode. It was really just kind of a rant conversation ish, things that are on my mind regarding this topic because it came up this week in some conversations. But just remember that we want to stay compassionate and curious with ourselves. And the more we stay rigid, black and white, all or nothing, the more we'll continue the binge eating cycle. So give yourself that permission to relax and explore and figure it out. It's what is it? Brie Campos calls it like an archaeological dig. It's not really trial and error or just finding a solution. It's an archaeological dig. You're always uncovering something new. Thanks so much for listening to today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to let me know. And don't forget to head over to my Instagram, binge.nutritionist, to sign up for the webinar on May 14th. I am so excited to share with you everything that I am creating for this webinar. And I hope you will join me so that I can help you piece together some pieces when it comes to healing your relationship with food and getting over binge eating for good. So I will see you then. Otherwise, hope you enjoyed and listen in next Monday for the next podcast. Bye, everyone.